It's now time for the Billy C. Show, part of the BillyCBoxing.com network.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C. Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for the Billy C. Show. Good morning, good day, good evening. Whenever you're watching, whenever you're listening, I hope you're doing okay today. Today's show is being brought to us in part by, you guessed it, my book. Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold. And you can get yourself a copy of this book while you're watching this show or listening to the show. Like right now, you can get a copy. Just go to Amazon.com and search either my name or Tom Molyneux. And magically, it'll appear. Give a shout out to my man Joel and Jesus, who's already in the chat room. If you're listening live, come on over to the chat room on YouTube and get your thoughts heard. If you're looking to get a signed copy, back to my book. Did I mention my book? It's the holidays. It's a perfect stocking stuffer, and you should give a copy of my book to anybody you know. And if you want a signed copy, just drop me an email, Billy@TalkinBoxing. That's TalkinBoxing.com, and I'll get you a copy. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by BillyCBoxing.com. Check it out for the latest news in the sport of boxing. It's only the most recent stuff because I change it real quickly. So check that out, BillyCBoxing.com. And you'll also find information on the show, schedule, replays of the show, all that happy stuff. Dax Khan writes some articles. You can check out his column and all that stuff. And speaking of the holidays coming up, well, if I wasn't speaking about it, I'm speaking about it now. Check out Blackett Products. You can get anything from T-shirts, hats, mugs, sports equipment, lots of shit, man. Check it out. You can go to the website, BillyCBoxing.com, and on the right-hand side, scroll down, and you'll see it. Blackett Products, it's right there on the right. Click it, and you'll be getting a pretty big discount just for clicking it from BillyCBoxing.com. I think it's a 15% or something like that off your order. So check it out. It is Christmas time. So in addition to giving your loved ones and friends a copy of my book, get something from Blackett. Also, don't forget that we would love to have you follow us on Twitter, subscribe to our Rumble page as well as our YouTube page, and join our Facebook group. Just search Talkin, TALKIN Boxing. And don't forget, if you ever have any thoughts, comments, concerns, questions, or answers, just drop me an email or chat me up on social media. Email account, Billy@TalkinBoxing, TalkinBoxing.com. Today's topic, what's wrong with boxing and how to fix it, at least in my opinion. I'm going to get into detail coming up a little bit later on the show. Also, I got some fight results from last week. This weekend's fights that I feel you should be watching. I got some updates on the latest news, and we got some listener email. And also, I'll give you a programming note. We are going to be doing a show next week, but then we won't be back until after the new year, the 2025, the first Thursday in 2025. So remember that when you start sending me emails. What happened? Where's the show? What's going on? But hey, listen, we want to start the show on a sad note. It saddens me to have to mention this, but Israel Magnifico Vasquez passed away the other night at the young age of 46 years old. The guy was a multi-division world champion. Actually, I should say he's a multi-sanctioning body world champion, IBF, WBC, and Ring Magazine, 122-pound title holder. Started his career at 17 years old, finished his career 44 wins and 5 losses, with 32 of his wins coming by knockout. He fought 5 former world champions or current world champions throughout his career, going 7 wins and 3 losses. And in world titles, he was 8 wins and 1 loss. Most people are going to remember him with the fantastic trilogy that he had with Rafael Marquez. If you've never seen the Vasquez-Marquez fights, I highly recommend it. But sad note that Israel Vasquez passed away, and that's a huge loss for all of us, the sport of boxing and all of the fans. So our condolences go out to the family of Israel Vasquez and, of course, all his friends. So the passing, 46 years old, terrible. But anyway, some fight results from last weekend. In a fight that I was really looking forward to. I thought it was going to be pretty entertaining, and I thought it was going to be a challenging fight. When 2020 Olympic gold medalist Gilal Yafi was taking on Sonny Edwards, the former IBF World Flyweight Champion, but it was a one-sided beatdown. Yafi just basically beat the snot out of Sonny Edwards to improve to 9-0 with 7 knockouts. The fight was stopped at 1 minute and 10 seconds in the 6th round. It was all Yafi from the opening bell until the stoppage. Watching the fight, I was saying to myself, this is the end of Sonny Edwards. And after the fight, he did retire. Sonny Edwards ends his career 21 wins, 2 losses, with 4 of his wins coming by knockout. It was a one-sided beatdown if you didn't see it. Also on that card, it was out of England on DAZN, Birmingham, England to be exact. Also, if you watched that card, you saw the comeback of Callum Smith. He improved to 30 wins, 2 losses, with 22 of his wins coming by knockout when he scored a 5th-round stoppage over Carlos Galvin, who drops to 20 wins, 15 losses, and 2 draws. The official time was 1 minute and 19 seconds of the 5th round. This was Callum Smith's first fight since he got stopped by Artur Beterbiev back in January. Some fights. I'm going through this pretty quickly because my whole topic today, what's wrong with boxing and how to fix it, is pretty lengthy. All right. So hopefully you guys are interested in hearing how we can correct boxing. This weekend, this always kills me. Every time I read this from the WBA, it makes me laugh. It makes me laugh. The funny thing is, it makes me laugh. But Manumed Char, he's got the distinction, and the WB has the you-know-whats to refer to him as their regular heavyweight world champion, which is a total joke, okay? And anyway, he's finally fighting again, and he's taking on Kubrat Pulev this weekend on DAZN. So, I'm going to watch it. But that's taking place. Also on ESPN, you got a pretty good junior lightweight world title fight between Emmanuel Navetti and Oscar Valdez. That's taking place also on the 7th, as well as a WBO world featherweight title matchup between Rafael Espinoza and Rob C. Ramirez. And also on DAZN, you got Liam Paro against Richardson Hitchens for the IBF junior welterweight title. So this weekend, between ESPN and DAZN, you got some decent fights. So speaking of fights, how about the card that was officially announced, I believe earlier this week, between the rematch between Artur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol? It's taking place in Saudi Arabia on February 22nd, and it's being billed as the last crescendo. And this fight, I mean, listen, the first fight was Honestly, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a little more action packed, but it was a great fight. And I thought the right guy won. I really got uptight about hearing so many people feeling that Bivol got robbed. Everybody uses that word robbed in the sport of boxing. He didn't get robbed. It could have went either way. But they're having a rematch. And if you recall, they were talking about possibly not getting a rematch. And it was rumored that Bivol's team was so upset over the robbery that they weren't going to give him the rematch and all of this stuff. But fear not, boys and girls, and children of all ages. The rematch is taking place, and it's taking place on February 22nd in Saudi Arabia. But that's not even the beginning of it. Have you seen the rest of this card? You got Daniel Dubois. Excuse me. I didn't cough all day today, and I started doing the show. And, of course, I get the cough, right? I must be allergic to boxing. I don't know. But Daniel Dubois is making a defense of his IBF World Heavyweight Championship against, you think, a slug? You think some obscure name that the IBF slid up the rankings? No, boys and girls and children of all ages. He's fighting Joseph Parker. That's a great matchup. I love that fight. How about this one? WBC Lightweight Championship. Shakur Stevenson is going up against Floyd Schofield. It's an interesting fight. Now, listen, I'm sick of all the BS that's going back and forth between Tank Davis and Shakur Stevenson and, how they want to fight. Oh, this one's back and right. But let me just give you, and I want to start off by saying this, and I know a lot of people disagree with me because they already have. But the truth of the matter is I think Shakur Stevenson, although I think he's a talented boxer, I think he's a bit overrated. He hasn't really proved much to me in the ring, except I got to drink lots of coffee when he's fighting because he's just a boring fighter. But I give him credit for taking on Schofield, because Schofield is ranked as well. The ranking that he has is number 2 because the division that he's ranked at number 2. The sanctioning body that he's ranked at number 2, which is, I believe, the IBF, the WBA, the same division that the same sanctioning body that Tank Davis is with. He's ranked number 2. The number 1 is not ranked at all in that sanctioning body in the WBA. So Shakur Stevenson's actually fighting, in my opinion, the number 1 ranked guy. I can't stand when sanctioning bodies have a ranking, a number, and then it's not rated. Nobody's in that spot, but there's somebody in the spot below, or there's somebody in the spot above, and then there's a space. That's BS. If you don't have anybody in number 1, number 2 should be number 1, and then move number 3 into number 2. I mean, come on. That's the way it should be. So I give Shakur Stevenson credit for fighting a number 1 or a number 2 ranked guy in this fight, something that Tank Davis is not doing, which I'm going to get to in a second. Also on this card, Carlos Adames against Khamzat Shiraz. That's a decent fight. WBC Middleweight Championship. I like Shiraz, and Carlos Adames has been around a long time. I like the fight. Another good one. How about, I hate the word, but I'm going to use it because that's what they're billing, a WBC interim super welterweight or junior middleweight championship fight between Virgil Ortiz and Israel Maradrimov. There's also a WBO interim light heavyweight championship fight between Joshua Butasi and Callum Smith, and a WBC interim heavyweight championship, Zhilei Zhang against Ajit KBL, which, look, I just read every one of these fights are legitimate headliner fights, okay? So this is a great stacked card that I can't wait to happen on February 22nd. So make sure you mark that one down, and I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to talk more about that. But what a card that is coming up in February. Now, I was mentioning about Tank Davis, okay? Now, let me start off by saying Tank Davis, I love Tank Davis. I think he's an extremely talented fighter. But as I get right after this into the problems of the sport of boxing and how to fix it, this is one of them. All right. Tank Davis talks a lot of shit, right? I mean, he's always talking smack. There's no question about it. And if you ever, are bored and you're looking for something to read, just pull up a picture of Tank Davis. He's got so many tats. It's like War and Peace on the guy's body. Okay, he's got tattoos everywhere, right? Now he is launched his press conference the other day, and he's fighting in Brooklyn on March 1st at the Barclays Center, and he's taking on Lamont Roach. Okay, here's my problem. Lamont Roach is a champion, okay, but in a lower weight class. So, Tank Davis has been talking all this smack about Shakur Stevenson, about Lomachenko, about Baranchyk, all the other champions in the lightweight division. And he picks a guy that's smaller than him, that he has the edge. And I'm sure, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm sure there's going to be some stipulations in the contract and everything else. If you're going to talk smack, back it up. Gervonta Davis said the other day that he dismisses. Now, all of a sudden, he dismisses a potential fight with Shakur Stevenson. You know why? Because he said, what has he done in the sport? Listen, I don't doubt, I can't really argue with that statement because I kind of feel the same way about Shakur Stevenson, okay? He hasn't really accomplished anything yet except display, really good boxing technique. He's boring. He hasn't really, he doesn't have any memorable fights, okay? To me, he doesn't. I fall asleep watching his fights. But to talk smack on social media and to pound your chest and say you're the best and then dismiss a potential matchup with another champion, it just goes back to what I always say about the PBC fighters. They don't want to fight anybody. And I can't stand it. I, for one, I'm telling you right now, Davis should be fighting Floyd Schofield. Floyd Schofield is the highest ranked fighter in Davis's WBA sanctioning body in his own division. He's ranked at number 2, like I was saying before. That's the fight Tank Davis should be fighting if he's not brave enough or man enough to step in a ring with another fellow title holder. But instead, Shakur Stevenson, the guy that Tank Davis is saying that he's not worthy to fight, is fighting a guy that I think that Tank Davis should be fighting. He chooses a smaller guy. Listen, the truth is that everybody wants to see between these 4 guys, Tank Davis, Shakur Stevenson, Vasily Lomachenko, and Baranchyk, in some way, shape, or form, have them fight each other, and then the 2 winners fight each other for the unified title. That's what we would love to see, but they're all ducking it. Listen, the PBC has let us down, okay? They sold us a bill of goods that they never backed up. And I, for one, this is a pay-per-view, by the way. Tank Davis, main event against Lamont Roach. I'm telling you right now, I will not watch this fight. I will not pay. Well, let me rephrase that. I will not pay for this fight, okay? I'm not going to support anything that the PBC does unless it's a real fight. This is just my opinion, all right? But anyway, all right, here we go. Here's my topic for today, all right? Jesus is in the chat room saying he feels Schofield is ranked too high. Very well could be, Jesus, but the truth of the matter is each sanctioning body has their rankings, so they also have their champions. So theoretically, if you were going to follow the hierarchy of boxing where a ranked contender fights the guy, it's called climbing a ladder, right? He fights the guy that's above him, and then the winner fights the guy above him, and they climb their way up, and they earn a shot at a world title. That's the way it used to be. That's not what happens now. The champions today don't want to fight anybody, and they pick the easiest potential fight. Now, why do they do that? Well, because, they're trying to emulate other fighters in the past who have done that and made out financially. I don't have to mention any names, but you know who I'm talking about. All right, look, This is going to take a little bit. All right. So, what's wrong with professional boxing, and how can we fix it? This is my opinion. All right. So, first of all, the first thing that's wrong with professional boxing is that there's too many sanctioning bodies. There's too many of them. I mean, look, we usually talk about the top four: the WBC, the WBA, IBF, and the WBO. There's many, many others. All right. I happen to like the IBO. I like the IBO. Some other, secondary reputable titles. IBO is one of them. WBF is one. But there's a lot of others. All right. There's too many. And this is in no particular order, what I'm saying. But the other thing that's wrong, some of the other things that's wrong with boxing, fighters of today are pricing themselves out of fights. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and I've talked about it many times. Even young fighters, even 4-round fighters, are acting like they deserve thousands of dollars to step in the ring. Now look, you could look at that two ways. Okay, when you start looking at the way, well, I'm risking, I'm the one that's in there fighting, and I want to get compensated for the fight. Okay, you can't argue with that. Okay, you can't. But enough already. A 4-round fighter is supposed to be establishing themselves. They should be an attitude. When I'm ready to manage a fighter, I'll sit down with a fighter and I'll ask a few questions. What are you looking to get out of boxing? Why do you want to be a pro boxer? There's usually two answers to that question. One is right for me, and one is wrong. The wrong answer is when a fighter says, well, I want to make some money. That's the wrong answer. I want to hear from a fighter that a fighter wants to become a world champion. And then in order to do that, there's other steps that you have to take. And one of them is you have to fight some fights. So these 4-round fighters that are demanding $3,000 and everything. Look, I know times are different. When I was promoting fights, 4-round fighters were making $100 a round. So they make $400 for a fight plus, expenses or whatever. But you got to assume that they're being evenly matched with another fighter with similar abilities, and it makes sense because the winner would move on, and the loser has to go back to the drawing board, back to the gym, work on whatever, or maybe he says to himself, maybe this isn't for me. But what's happening is you got guys that are saying to themselves, well, I want to make a ton of money, and I don't want to fight this guy. I only want to fight that guy, and it's ruining it. So the fighters out pricing themselves are starting at low end. Forget about the high end guys. All these guys, like we were just talking about, Tank Davis, talking smack, and then they don't fight, right? Because they can't make enough money, or they outprice themselves. They want, way too much money that a promoter can afford to give, or anything else. So fighters outpricing themselves is one of the things wrong with the sport. Also, promoters that aren't willing to work with other promoters. I mean, we're seeing it now with Turki Al-Rashid because he's throwing money at them, and but the inability or the lack of willingness to fight another promoter's promoter. Now, I always, of late, the last decade, I've blamed this on the UFC and the success of the UFC because of Dana White. Okay, so promoters say, hey, that's what I want to do. I want to control my fighters. So they get all their fighters under their banner, and then they match their fighters against their fighters, and that's how they all make their money, right? But we as fans are not getting the other fights that we want to see, okay? The other things that's wrong is there's too much emphasis on a title. Promoters and networks seem to think the only way that they can sell a fight is to have a title on the line. Subsequently, a lot of fans don't even know the value of a title that's on the line. They just know that the fight is for a belt. These are something I'm going to get into later about fans not knowing, the difference. You got guys coming out carrying a belt over their heads, and they must be the champion. They must be good. Oh, they gotta know. That means they're good. Greed from everybody that's involved with the sport, between the fighters, the promoters, the managers, the sanctioning bodies. Greed is another thing that's wrong with the sport. Commissions, the commissions. Some commissions over commission. They start doing things that's above and beyond what, in my opinion, a boxing commission should do. A boxing commission should be looking out for the well-being of the fighters and the other people involved in the ring during the fight. The cornermen, the referees, the judges, everybody around. That's the commission. But sometimes commissions, get overzealous. Let's just say, they make it very hard with some funky rules and regulations that promoters can't afford to do shows. Now, this is predominantly, not that I want to bash any specific commissions, but I will tell you that it's predominantly the New York State Athletic Commission, the Nevada State Athletic Commission, the New Jersey State Athletic Commission. Larry Hazard, I love you, man, but you guys are tough sometimes too. And California can be rough sometimes. These commissions are kind of chasing fighters away. Now, with that said, if you are a New Jersey fighter, licensed in New Jersey or licensed in New York or licensed in Nevada, or licensed in California, let's say, you get first dibs. Chances are those commissions, they develop a relationship with these fighters, and they're always getting on the cards and they're getting approved, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. But what about the fighter? Doesn't that limit the opportunities of the fighter if he's, sanctioned? Let's say he's allowed to fight in New York because he's all medicaled up in New York. What if he wants to fight somewhere else? Now, with these same commissions, I'm telling you that, handcuffed promoters at times, the requirements that they have do make it possible for fighters to fight anywhere because of the medical requirements. So there's good things, safety of the fighter, and then there's bad things, the expense that falls on the promoter's shoulders that prevents that promoter from doing more shows than I wish I could see. There's not enough true boxing people involved in the boxing business. You got listen, we've talked about it on this show many times. You don't need anything to be in the boxing business. All you need is a checkbook and some actual money in your account, and poof, you're in. We talk about it all the time. I could be a head trainer if I paid a license fee. And out of everything that has to do with the sport of boxing, I've done it except one thing. I've never trained. I'm not a trainer. I never claimed to be a trainer, and I've never tried to be a trainer. I've been a fighter. I've been everything else, right? But not a trainer, But yet I could be the head trainer by buying the license for the fight and be good in most commissions for 1 year. And I've never trained a fighter. There's no license required. There's no test required. Nothing. There's not enough boxing teachers and not enough boxing gyms. Now, I'm not talking about fitness centers that have a couple of heavy bags and some speed bags and even a ring. I'm talking about stinky, shitty, old, grungy boxing gyms. That's what boxing needs, those kinds of gyms, okay? Because that's what, cultivates fighters, all right? I mean, it's listen, you're in there to train, and some hot babe is working out on a machine over there. How are you going to concentrate on your coach who doesn't even know a left hook from a fish hook? How are you concentrating on him when you can't help but watch her doing her squats, So, I mean, it's true. And I think boxing gyms, not that, females wouldn't be in a boxing gym, but I just think that boxing gyms should be driving boxing. You can't learn boxing in a fitness center. I mean, you can, but this is just my opinion. I also think there's too many rah-rah men, not enough good teachers. Or you're great, you're good. Oh wait, yeah, and they don't know nothing. You can see it. All you gotta do is watch a fight and listen to the corner. You hear you hear what they say. Listen to the corner. What kind of instruction are they getting? Are they getting a lot of take a deep breath, just a deep breath, sit down, oh, relax. Oh, we're getting Zen masters in the corner, right? I want to hear some instruction, some technical instruction being given to a fighter. And I don't want to hear 10 or 12 things in the corner. I want to hear one or two adjustments. And I want to hear it several times so that my fighter can understand what I'm looking for. I don't want to go back to a corner as a fighter and have a trainer say to me, "Hey, you're getting hit too much. You're getting hit too much, kid. You got to avoid them punches." How, coach? I mean, it's ridiculous. If you stop and listen to what they're saying, it's hard because I turn the volume down because I can't stand the commentators these days. But if you listen to what they're saying in the corner, you can tell if a fighter has a good trainer or a rah-rah man. All right. And boxing needs more of them. So that's a negative, right? That's what's wrong with the sport. I think that the other thing is fighters aren't progressively increasing their level of opposition after a fight. This is a combination of manager, promoter, and fighter because they don't want to risk the O. Remember I said before, there's too much, these are all the problems, too much emphasis in the O, right? Well, a fighter, a manager, a promoter doesn't want their fighter to lose because if they get a loss, then their value goes down. So they keep putting them in with the same level opposition that is not challenging their fighter. So the fighter's not getting any better. You can only teach so much in the gym. You can only learn so much from sparring. You got to get in the ring with a real fight. Somebody, in sparring, you get guys that you're sparring with. In most cases, they're told that we're going to work on body shots today. We're going to work on the jab today, and the sparring partner conforms to what you're trying, what you brought him in for. So you're not really developing because you're not facing an opponent that's going to mix it up a little bit and maybe not giving you something that you're expecting. So, the only way you get that is in real live fights. And that's the truth. I also feel that the boxing fan hurts the sport because they're not as knowledgeable as they once were. I'm knocking the guy on my shoulder. He says, "You're knocking the younger fans." Yeah, I am because they're too lazy to learn about the previous generations of fighters. And like I've said a million times on this show, this is the only sport in which it's important to understand what took place, 20, 40, 60, 100 years ago, because boxing has evolved into what you see today in terms of technique and the styles and stuff. The boxers themselves do not have the same heart they once were. They do not train as hard as they once did. Boxing is not a trade like it once was. So there's a lot of changes within the sport. But the truth of the matter is you need to understand how it got to where we are. And the only way you can understand that is if you go back and take the time to learn. And sometimes boys and girls and children of all ages, it's not available on video. Harry Greb, one of the greatest middleweights of all time, if not, you could argue that he was the greatest middleweight of all time. There's no video. So what? You're going to dismiss it because there's no video? Sugar Ray Robinson, a guy that I think is the best fighter ever and will never see another one like him. All the video you see of him is after his best days were behind him. There's virtually, I don't believe, as far as I know, there's no video of him as a welterweight. Most of it's middleweight. So I mean, a lot of stuff. Jack Johnson, great fighter. The only video we see are from 1900. And a guy's cranking the camera, one camera shot. The lighting's messed up, the speed, you can't tell how fast they were. So sometimes you have to go by the write-ups, the articles. and you unfortunately you got to read several because, especially in the newspaper era, you'd have a local guy covering a local fighter, and his version of the fight, his fighter won, but the guy from across town, he watched it, he felt the other guy won. So you know, I also feel that the big events. Now, this is kind of changing with Saudi Arabia, but the big events are on too late. They're on too late. I mean, thank God for DVD, DVR, where you can record them. But, I love it when we have a Saudi Arabia event and, the undercard starting at 2 o'clock in New York, I'm watching fights from 2 o'clock in the afternoon until 8 o'clock at night. I mean, I love it. I'm watching every one. But when they don't come on, when the main event's not coming on till midnight, and the fight's not over till 1 a.m. here on the East Coast, that's a little too late. I think the sport, I watch them because it's my business. But I mean, I think we're losing fans. I think some people might say, "Screw that! I'm not staying up. I'm going out here. I'm doing this, doing that." And maybe they catch it the next day. So I think that something has to be done about that. There's a lack of small local club level shows. I'm talking about venues that hold 300 people or less. That's the backbone. That used to be the backbone of the sport. You used to have there was so many more fighters and so many gyms and all of that, but you used to have a local town. Let's say Poughkeepsie, New York. Let's say Poughkeepsie. Okay, it's a city, but it's not a big city. So you get a local fighter there and you fight fights in Poughkeepsie, New York, right? And you bring fighters in maybe up from Yonkers or bring them down from Albany. And you have these local shows with a local fighter and you build up a following. And, once that fighter is known and he can walk down the street in his local town or local city, and everybody knows who he is. Now you got a product. You got something there, and then you evolve. You take them and you maybe bring them to another city. Take them to Chicago. Fight their local guy. And that's how you build up a fan base, and you also build up a fighter. Everybody's looking for that one and done. They want to make that check. Everybody gets their money and cash out. Boxing can't work like that. We're witnessing why it can't work like that. We're being hand-fed garbage fights time and time again, and it turns people off. If I was a new boxing fan and I caught a fight and I loved it, and I said, "Oh, I can't wait to watch the next one," and then all of a sudden I'm watching these next 3, 4, 5 fights that are all, they're not, first of all, entertaining, whatever. What's entertaining? To watch one guy beat the snot out of the other one and the other guy doesn't deserve to be in the same ring talent-wise? I mean, it has to start on a club level. And this is where I circle back to the commissions. The commissions have to be able to recognize that and make it affordable for a promoter to put on a show like that. You can't charge somebody $600 to go see a fight. You got to be able to sell tickets for in the neighbor anywhere between $25 and $100 a ticket. Then you'll get fannies in the seats. I mean, let's face it. And the promoters today, they make it seem like they can make money by having a stream and charging. Oh, it's only $9.99. So what? It doesn't matter if it's $9.99, $3.99, or $29.99. Do I want to pay for it if it's streamed? I think people still have the mentality that if something's streamed, it should be for free. Now, DAZN and ESPN Plus and any of these other streaming services that offer you a plethora of fights and lots of fights in a course of a year and charge you for a subscription, I'm all for that. Thank God for DAZN, and ESPN Plus that are picking up, some of these fight cards that enables us to watch fights every week. I love the fact that DAZN has a fight card on every weekend. Some of the fights may not be, knockout, drag out, world championship level fights, but I'm okay with that. I just want to see. I want to learn who the fighters are. I want to see how good they are. Who are they fighting, et cetera, et cetera. Despite the internet, I believe that there's a lack of useful information on the fighters. We see a lot of stuff today where the fighters are promoting themselves. They talk smack. That's how fighters think they need to promote themselves. And I think it turns a lot of people off, or it builds up false hope for fighters. So, you used to have. I know it doesn't make financial sense for magazines and stuff. I know the Ring is coming back, but it's good to have something that you can hold in your hand and read, or even a website that will be able to get that content. But there lies another issue. Some websites are more favored towards specific fighters or areas of the world. So I just don't see a lot of stuff, useful stuff. I see a lot of stuff, but it's not useful. There's too many experts in the sport of boxing, self-proclaimed experts in the sport of boxing. I also believe that the top level fighters, like I discussed earlier, Tank Davis, they fight poor competition, man. I mean, how do you expect to keep fans engrossed in the sport of boxing if the matches are terrible? And they don't care, because all they care about is making the money, right? So those are some of my issues with what's wrong with boxing. Now, here's the magic thing: how do we fix it, right? How do we fix boxing? Well, the opposite of everything I just said. We need more club shows. So the powers that be have to figure out a way to be able to afford to put on more club shows, so that people don't have to tune in to a streaming service to watch fights. That they can go down the street, they can drive less than an hour away to watch live boxing. You need more club shows. You need more gyms, because the more boxing gyms you have, the more potential fighters you have, and the more potential fighters you have will justify having smaller local club shows. I believe that promoters, we need more promoters that are willing to promote locally, like I'm talking about, and investing in building up a local town or city fighter. I believe that that's been that's been something that we're lacking. I think we need more education about the sport, not only about the historical aspects, and not only about how to box or anything anything else, but also the benefits of the sport, fitness and health wise. I've always said, and it's a big thing now where a lot of people do a boxing workout for fitness reasons. Well, if most boxers, if they're training, are in pretty damn good shape, and I tell you something, here in the United States in the 1800s, around the Civil War time, that was when we first started thinking about fitness, was during that era, 1860s, that era. And the only fitness that they were talking about back then was boxing. That's how people started training. That's how fitness came into the mix. Nobody was thinking about fitness before then. So if fitness in itself, health and fitness has evolved, for that, 100, a couple 150 years or whatever, right? Speaking about promoters, we need more than one Turki Al-Rashid. We need other promoters that are willing to open up their checkbook, man. Turki Al-Rashid is taking over the sport, which I think is good, but it's bad too. Because if he wakes up one morning and decides that he doesn't want to do it anymore, what's going to happen? Or worse, what if he doesn't wake up one morning? Then what happens? You know what I mean? Listen, you need more than one. Boxing is so greedy that they're all latching on to him like a burr. You know what a burr is? Like you walk through a field and you end up with a burr and it's stuck on your clothes. Oh, that's what all these people in the sport of boxing, they're like burrs on Turki Al Rashid's robe. We need more than one. You know, one of the most important things we need is we need boxing people to run the sport of boxing. That means the commissions. They need to be boxing people, not some appointed person that doesn't know a left hook from a fish hook or doesn't even like to see fights, and they're running the show. You need boxing people to run the sport of boxing. In football, do you have, basketball players running the sport of football? You got in the NFL, you got football executives, experts in football. Baseball is the same. Basketball is the same. Boxing is the only sport that has non-boxing people running it. I mean, think about that. New York State alone, in the time that I promoted, they had people that weren't even boxing people as commissioners. At least they've gotten better. I mean, they've gotten better over the years. I mean, look, when you had a guy like Ron Scott Stevens came in, he did good. And then of course my main man, Randy Gordon. When Randy Gordon was a commissioner, he's a boxing guy. He's still a boxing guy. I mean, you need guys like him. You need boxing people. Non-boxing people running the sport of boxing. It's absurd. I mean, just think about that. Just think about that. That's, everybody, what's the problem with boxing? Well, the first problem is you got people that don't know a left hook from a fish hook running the show. That's like having somebody that doesn't know how to swim be a swimming instructor. Come on. I mean, I also believe that the ring officials, the cornermen, etc., they all need to know what the sport's about. I believe that a license, whether for all non-participants, if you're going to be a trainer, a cornerman, a manager, a promoter, some commissions require it, others don't. I think there should be some type of test, not just shell out some money and buy the license. You should have a test to demonstrate that you do know about the sport of boxing. I think that's critical. I believe that more shows like we did, and I'm not trying to promote my thing, but we did a series called Boxing Revisited, and what it was, my late great co-host Sal Rocky Senecola and I used to do this show. It was called Boxing Revisited, and we would rebroadcast actual fights in front of a live audience on a big screen. Everything would be like you were at an event, except instead of seeing fighters physically there, you were watching the fight on the screen, and it was great. And fans got to see fights of yesteryear, and we called it like it was happening live. That worked. It's an educational thing. It will help fans learn about fighters of the past, and I think that's a great concept. I would love somebody else to do something like that. Real promotion. We want real promoters to promote. Local, regional, world. It's got to be promoted the right way. More boxing events. DAZN has helped with this, but we need more. There's a lot of them in other parts of the world that we never even get to see. I also believe that we need more promotion of the halls of fame, not just the International Boxing Hall of Fame, which, I hate to say it, they're going to announce today, and probably in about 15 minutes, they're going to announce the Hall of Famers this year. It's a moneymaker for the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Most of the other boxing Hall of Fames, state-wise or regionally wise, it's all about the fighters that they enshrine. It's not about putting money in their pocket like I believe the International Boxing Hall of Fame is. I think people should promote reading boxing material, books, magazines, watching non-fictional boxing movies and documentaries. And to be honest with you, even fictional tales are helpful. Boxing not only has a ton of great boxing stories, but a lot of them are human interest stories as well. So I think that more time should be spent with that. When there were 8 divisions and 8 world champions, that means only one champion per division, there was only 80 top 10 contenders combined. Boxing was at its best, right? But because of greed and because of all the sanctioning bodies, it's changed. Even if you kept all 18 weight classes now, which includes the new bridgeweight division, and you only had one champion in each, that would be better, right? But in order to do that, the sanctioning bodies would have to bow out gracefully, and we all know that that's never going to happen. They got their clutches into boxing, and it's a moneymaker. I made up several years ago. I came up with an idea of how boxing could work with utilizing the 4 sanctioning bodies that we have now and work. And this is how it would be. You would use, and this was a system that I came up with. You use the 4 major sanctioning bodies: the WBC, the WBA, the IBF, and the WBO. Okay, so you're not asking them to fold. You divide them into the 4 sanctioning bodies and look at it as a division, right? Like a football division, and you could make it work basically the way it is now with a couple little tweaks. You can only let them have one champion per division. I was reading about that great card on February 22nd, and there were at least 3 fights on that card that were for interim titles. For my system to work, the 4 sanctioning bodies would have to give up all of that shit. They'd have to only have one world title holder in each division. So, that wouldn't work. Then here's the thing. Each one would have to crown a champion, only one world champion, only one world champion per division, and it would have to be in place for the finals, and then we would move on to the unified championship. Now, if you looked at it like, say, football or baseball or basketball, and they go by season, right? Well, in order for this to work, and the nature of, having all these people involved, you couldn't do it in 1 year. You could do it in 2 or 3 years. So you can create a season where you have 4 divisions, WBC, WBA, IBF, WBO, and they have 2 or 3 years, let's say, to crown a champion, right, in each division. Now, the way they do that is the old style. They get rid of the top 15 or the top 20, and they get rid of the, what can you put in this hand for me to write my fighter's name up on number 10 so he gets a title shot? Because this is what happens. Like, hey, you got to make a title defense. WBA would say, oh, you got to make a title defense. And our rules say it has to be against a top 10 guy. And all of a sudden, some guy that you never heard of mysteriously appears at number 10, and guess who gets to fight the champion? That's bullshit. What you need to do is you need to have honest rank. Now, you can still divide it because they're not going to let go, right? So you're going to have fighters that are going to align themselves with their division. So WBA, WBC, etc., right? And then the way they determine is they rank their fighters, and then the lowest fighter has to fight the fighter above him and climb the ladder until you end up with a number 1 and number 2 ranked fighter. And those 2 fighters fight for their divisional title. So now you end up with a WBC world champion, right? So they're still getting their sanctioning fees, right? You're just putting it in a realistic order. And then once that happens, then of course, and each division is doing this, and then of course, as this season progresses, you end up with a champion in each weight class for each of the divisions. So now you have a playoff. The WBC champions fight the WBA champions, and the IBF champions fight the WBO. I'm just saying that hypothetically. And then you get, that unified champion, and then those guys fight the other one that was unified, and you crown a unified world champion. Okay. And let's say that takes let's say it takes 3 years from the beginning of the season it starts. And then after you have that champion, you start over. You make the guys do it again instead of milking a belt or stripping them of a belt or all of that. You start over again so that the other fighters that lost or other young fighters that are on their way up, they get another chance. Their careers aren't over. And remember all the other sanctioning bodies I was telling you that there are that you never heard of? They could be like a minor leagues. Tie them in with it and have their champions progress up into one of the division top 10 guys. I know it seems hard to grasp, but it's really not. All you need, which is the hardest part, would be to have everybody work together. And they would have to care about the sport of boxing. And I believe if all the powers that be sat down and they faced the facts, are you interested in just the money, or are you interested in the sport and the money? Because if you look at this system, the amount of fights that would have to take place would quadruple the amount of fights that are taking place today. So theoretically, they could have some kind of fee structure once they get up into the top 6 or whatever fights, so that the sanctioning bodies still make their money or whatever. But the amount of fights to have in order to have this guy beat that guy and so on and so forth would be tons and tons of fights. And especially if you have a time limit of a 3-year, let's say, even if they stretch it to 4, whatever, you have that time limit. And it could be done. Not only that, but think of this, boys and girls and children of all ages. You're developing a fan base. Because if I'm just like you're a fan of a baseball or football team, you become a fan of a specific fighter and you watch him climb the ranks. And you feel it when he loses, and then you can't wait. Okay, what does he got to do now? Oh, he's going to go back to the IBO and win that title to get another shot at this. So you're building a fan base, you're building a following base, you're providing more fights than what are happening now, and you have some kind of structure, and you're not saying goodbye WBC, WBA, because remember, these sanctioning bodies don't recognize each other. They only recognize each other when they have a unification. All you got to do is go look at the rankings. There's very few fighters that are ranked in all of the sanctioning bodies. That's a problem to me. That's a problem. If you're considered the number 8 welterweight in the world, you should be ranked somewhere else. Why is the number 5 ranked middleweight only ranked in one division, in one sanctioning body? Is he really the 5th best middleweight if he's only ranked in one? Yeah, okay, then we get to go by the computer rankings, and it just gets so crazy. We need to simplify it. My system, I believe, would work. I think that you would need a lot of you'd need some type of a overall commissioner, so to speak, a boxing person that would oversee it, that the sanctioning bodies would have to report to, in a sense, and you'd have to have the fighters and the promoters and the managers all willing to do it. Because I'll tell you right now, even if you agree with me and think that it could work, all it would take, and I'm not saying he would do it, but all it would take is one Turki Al-Rashid to come in and say, hey, you're with the WBC, you're with the WBA. Tell you what, forget that crap. Come on over, fight on my card. I'll give you $10 million each, or I'll give you $50 million each. And you see them leave. So it has to be a system that all the parties have to buy into, whether it be starting at the fighter level, up through the commissions would have to have some kind of a say in it. We have a uniform. I believe that there should be a uniform medical requirement. I also believe, like New York State, New Jersey, Nevada, they require head scans, right? But a lot of times, they'll require a head scan, but they don't have anything to compare it to. So they compare it to what a normal scan should be, right? Or they compare it to the scan that they took, and then the fighter gets into a fight, and then they have the scan after the fight, and they can compare it to the scan that they have, right? I believe that in order to turn professional, you need to do that. You need to get a head scan so that the doctors and the powers that be have what you could term a fresh head scan of a fighter prior to him turning pro. Now you have a legitimate data, a piece of data that you can compare after knockouts and severe beating fights and stuff, where you can take another scan and compare the two and see if there's an issue. That's the only way that makes sense. Okay, Bill, you can't do that. Why? The reason why is because it's too expensive. Okay, bring in the promoter. So now I want to turn pro, right? I want to turn pro. I'm a young fighter. I don't have the money to go buy a head scan or whatever it costs, $2,000, whatever it costs, right? So what do? I go and try to hook up with a promoter or a management team that's willing to lay out the money for my head scan so I can get a turn pro, get my federal ID and turn pro. And in return, I sign a contract with that promoter or that manager. It's that easy. And if managers and promoters aren't willing to lay out that money, why would you want to sign with that guy anyway? Listen, I know it's far-fetched, and you may or may not agree with what I feel is wrong with the sport. But one of the biggest things is greed, and one of the biggest things is division. We have too much division in the sport of boxing when we need unity. Speaking of which, and I know they're going to announce it here in a couple minutes, but my man, Coach, sent me an email. He says, hope you had a solid 2 weeks away from boxing. I wanted to grab a fresh article about the Hall of Fame and any specific formula that I might use. I didn't look. I've gotten sick of the selection committee, specifically that Marlon Starling's not in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. I believe he should be. And the article that Coach sent me was written by a guy who's on the committee who casts his vote. And the guy hasn't even been covering boxing for 10 years. I mean, and he's considered an expert. Come on. He hasn't even been around 10 years. If he's not covering boxing, that means he never watched a Mike Tyson fight when Mike Tyson was in his prime, But I do agree with some of the fighters that he wants to put in. Manny Pacquiao is going to be a layup. He's going to get in. I believe Michael Nunn should get in. Ponskat, Won Jong Kam. This guy was, he fought forever. He should get in. Jorge Arce, that was an interesting one. I do believe Jorge Arce should get in too. The guy was a very talented fighter, and he had some great ring walks. And Vinny Pazienza, Vinny Paz has been trying to get into the Hall of Fame for a while. I don't see why he's not in the Hall of Fame. Sean Porter, is he going to get in? He's on the ballot. Now, if Sean Porter gets in over a guy like Vinny Paz, now no disrespect to Sean Porter because I love Sean Porter. It's just that Vinny Pazienza or Jorge Arce or any of these guys, Michael Nunn, Won Jong Kam, these guys should all get in before Sean Porter. Sean Porter will get his chance again, but if it's a what do they call it? Not celebrity, but popularity vote. If the Brophies are going to be making the decision based on popularity, then Sean Porter is going to get in over Jorge Arce or Won Jong Kam. Vinny Pazienza should get in, definitely. But we'll see. Sean Porter, Lucien Boutte, Mikey Garcia, all great fighters, and they'll all have their day. But I don't think it should be today. So we'll see what happens. They're going to be announcing it here in a couple of minutes. Listen, I just wanted to thank everybody for hearing my thoughts on this. And if you want to extend that conversation, or if you have any other ideas, let me know. We could revisit it. I just want to mention programming note one more time. We will not be doing a live show. Next week, we'll be doing a live show, but then we will be off until after the new year. The holidays coming up on us pretty quick. And we are contemplating what we're going to do for 2025, if we're going to continue doing the show on a weekly basis, if maybe we do something different. There's been a lot of talk. I've gotten a lot of people reaching out to me about doing our morning show again, which I'm considering. And to be honest, I'm also considering not doing any show. So that's all going to be. I'm going to be making up my mind in the 2 weeks that we're off after next week. But we will be back here next week. So make sure you tune in next week right here. Same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, I'll leave you with this. Ciao, baby. Hey, enjoy the fights this weekend. There are going to be a couple good ones. So DAZN, ESPN, be there.